I stopped getting compliments on my hair 3 years before I figured out why. Nobody tells you that the haircut you've trusted for a decade might be the exact thing making you look tired in every photo. Today I'm breaking down 3 haircuts that genuinely take years off a woman over 60, and 3 that quietly add them back on, no matter how well you think you're maintaining them. I researched the worst style and beauty mistakes and the best fixes for women over 50 so you get real results, fast. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every week. Part 1. The cut that's secretly aging every blunt bob wearer over 60. Here's something your stylist probably hasn't said out loud. A perfectly blunt, one-length bob is one of the harshest cuts you can wear once your face starts to soften with age. It's not the length. It's the straight, heavy line sitting right at the jaw. And what that line does is draw a hard horizontal frame around exactly the area that's changed the most on your face. You know the look. You've caught yourself in a store window and thought, when did my jaw start doing that? That's not your jaw. That's your haircut arguing with your jaw. I want you to picture the last time you saw an older woman with a severe, geometric bob, and thought she looked harsh, even angry, when she probably wasn't. That blunt line is doing the emotional work her face never asked it to do. And most women don't blame the cut. They blame themselves. They start avoiding photos, avoiding the mirror in bright light, without ever connecting it back to those scissors. The fix is called point cutting, and it's a completely different technique than a trim. Instead of cutting straight across with the scissors closed, your stylist angles the blades vertically into the ends of the hair, cutting tiny irregular notches into that solid line. Ask for this exact phrase. Point cut the perimeter, don't just blunt trim it. That sentence alone will change the conversation at the chair. What it does technically is break up the density along that bottom edge, so the ends fall softly instead of sitting like a shelf. The line that used to frame your jaw now moves with it instead of against it. Here's the part that surprises people. This isn't about losing length or losing volume. You keep the exact same length if you want to. The difference is entirely in how that end line behaves. A blunt edge reflects light in one flat plane, which is what makes it look heavy and graphic under any light that isn't perfectly soft. A point cut edge breaks that reflection into dozens of smaller planes. So instead of one hard line, your eye reads soft, feathered movement. That's the whole trick. Same haircut, same length, completely different story your face is telling. Now here's the snapback moment, the actual result you're going to notice. Once that hard line softens, people stop reading your jawline first when they look at you. Your eyes become the focal point again, the way they were before that blunt cut took over the conversation. Women tell me this constantly. They didn't lose weight, they didn't do anything to their skin, but suddenly people are saying they look rested. That's the point cut. It's not adding softness to your face. It's removing the thing that was competing with your face. I've heard this story more times than I can count, and it always goes the same way. A woman walks into her usual salon, asks for just a trim, same as always, and the stylist, out of habit, blunts the ends right back to that same heavy line. She leaves feeling like nothing improved, because nothing did. The cut looked identical to the one she'd been unhappy with for 2 years. That's why the exact phrasing matters so much here. If you don't specifically request point cutting, most stylists will default to the blunt finish because that's what a bob technically is by training. You have to interrupt that default on purpose. So here's your before and after, named specifically. Before, a one-length blunt bob with a solid horizontal line sitting heavy at the jaw. After, the same bob, same length, point cut at the perimeter so the ends fall in soft, irregular pieces instead of one flat shelf. But the blunt bob isn't the only cut quietly working against you. There's a second haircut almost every woman over 60 has tried at some point, convinced it would fix everything. And it's actually one of the harder ones to pull off gracefully as your hair changes texture. I'll show you exactly what it is, and what to ask for instead. Part 2. 2 fixes that undo what a decade of habit did. The second aging culprit is the uniform, one-length pixie, the kind cut the exact same short length all over the head with no variation from crown to nape. It sounds low maintenance, and stylists love recommending it because it's fast and predictable. But on most women over 60, hair has already started thinning at the crown, and a one-length pixie sits flat right there, at the exact spot where you need lift the most. Instead of looking cropped and chic, it can end up reading as thin and flat, which is the opposite of what you walked in wanting. You've probably felt this without having words for it. You get the pixie, you love it for the first 2 weeks in the mirror at the salon, and then you start styling it at home, and it just lies there. No amount of product brings back what those first salon photos promised. That's not a product problem. That's a cutting problem. The fix here is internal layering combined with root lift at the crown specifically. Ask your stylist this exact phrase. Add internal layers through the crown and point cut the top pieces for texture. What internal layering does is remove weight from underneath the surface hair without shortening the visible length, so the top pieces have room to stand up instead of being weighed down by the hair beneath them. Root lift is a separate, complementary technique where the stylist cuts the hair at the crown slightly shorter than the surrounding pieces, so it physically can't lie flat even under its own weight. This combination matters because thinning hair behaves differently than thick hair, and most one-length pixies are cut using a thick hair assumption. When you specifically ask for layering plus root lift, you're telling your stylist to cut for the hair you actually have now, not the hair you had at 40. The visible result is volume that looks natural rather than teased or sprayed, because it's built into the cut itself rather than added afterward with styling tools. The snapback result here is immediate and visible in every photo taken from above, which is exactly the angle most candid photos happen to be shot from. Instead of the crown reading flat and thin, it reads full and deliberate. Women tell me people start commenting that they did something with their hair, even though the length never changed. That's the layering doing quiet work you can't always name, but can absolutely see. Before, a uniform one-length pixie lying flat at the crown with visible thinning at the top. After, the same short length, internally layered with root lift built into the crown, so it stands with natural volume instead of lying flat at T into the cut itself rather than added afterward with styling tools. There's a second cut in this same category, one that gets recommended constantly to women over 60 for exactly the wrong reason. It's the safe shoulder-length layer job with no shape at all, just generic layering scattered evenly through the whole head with no real design behind it. Here's why that happens. A lot of stylists, when they hear low maintenance from a client over 60, default to cutting soft, even layers everywhere, assuming that's the gentlest option. But evenly scattered layers with no defined shape create what's called a mullet effect, over time as the layers grow out unevenly, because there was never an intentional structure guiding where the shortest and longest pieces should land. The fix is face-framing layers with a defined perimeter shape, specifically layers that are longest at the collarbone and gradually shorter as they move toward the face, creating a deliberate frame rather than random scattered pieces. The exact phrase to use is, cut face-framing layers with a clear shortest to longest progression, not scattered layers throughout. This gives the cut an actual architecture. Every layer has a job, either framing the face or building movement through the length, instead of layers existing just because layers was the instruction given. What changes visually is dramatic once you see it side by side. Scattered layers with no plan create width through the middle of the head, which can make the face look wider than it is. Face-framing layers with a real progression narrow that same silhouette and draw the eye up toward the cheekbones and eyes instead. It's the same amount of hair, cut with intention instead of habit. The result women report most often here is that their face suddenly looks narrower and more defined in photos, without a single thing changing about their actual bone structure. It's an optical correction built entirely into where the scissors land. Before, shoulder-length hair with scattered, shapeless layers and no defined perimeter. After, the same length with face-framing layers cut in a deliberate shortest to longest progression toward the face. We've covered what's quietly aging you. Now let's flip it, because the next haircut on this list isn't a mistake at all. It's the single most requested age-defying cut in salons right now. And I'm going to tell you exactly what to say to get it right the first time. Part 3. The layered lob everyone's asking for, done right. Here's a fact that surprises most women. The layered lob has become the most requested cut among women over 60 in the last 2 years, more than any pixie, more than any bob. But here's what nobody mentions when they say, get a lob. The cut only works its age-defying magic when the layers are placed correctly, and a huge number of women are walking out with a lob that's technically the right length, but cut with the wrong internal structure. so it doesn't do what they saw online. I understand the appeal completely. You've seen the photos, a woman your age with a soft movement-filled lob that somehow looks both polished and effortless. You bring in the photo. Your stylist nods. And what you get back is a lob, technically lengthwise, but it just hangs there. Heavy. Static. Nothing like the photo. That gap between expectation and result is almost always about internal layering, not length. The specific fix is internal layering starting at the cheekbone, not the jaw, combined with a slightly longer front piece than back piece. The exact phrase for your stylist: layer internally starting at the cheekbone, and leave the front pieces a touch longer than the back. Starting the layers higher, at cheekbone level instead of jaw level, is what creates movement near the face specifically, which is the area that does the most visual work in every photo and every conversation you have. The longer front piece detail keeps the shape from looking abrupt or choppy near the chin, which is a common complaint with lobs cut without this detail. This combination is doing very specific work. The cheekbone level internal layers remove weight exactly where it needs to move, right around the face, so the hair has room to curve inward toward the jaw instead of hanging in one static sheet. The slightly longer front pieces create a soft face framing point rather than a hard blunt end at the front, which is often the exact detail that separates a lob that photographs beautifully from one that photographs flat. The snapback moment here is about movement, specifically how the hair behaves when you turn your head or walk, not just how it looks sitting still in a mirror. A static lob looks the same from every angle, which reads as heavy no matter how good the length is. A properly layered lob shifts and resettles with motion, which is what creates that effortless quality women are chasing when they bring in the photo. It's not effortless. It's precisely engineered movement. Before, a collarbone-length lob with no internal layering, hanging heavy and static in one flat sheet. After, the same length with cheekbone-level internal layers, and a slightly longer front piece, moving softly with natural curve toward the jaw. I want to tell you about a woman I heard from who brought in 3 different photos of the same lob style to 3 different appointments over 2 years, at 2 different salons, and got a flat, heavy result every single time, because she never once said the words internal layering out loud. She assumed the photo was doing that job for her. It wasn't. Once she used that exact phrase at her 4th appointment, she said it was the first time the cut actually matched what she'd been picturing the whole time. Sometimes the gap between disappointment and exactly what you wanted is 4 specific words. This is why I keep coming back to exact phrasing throughout this video. Stylists aren't guessing randomly, they're responding to the language you give them, and vague requests get vague, generic results. Specific technical language gets specific, intentional results. It's not about being difficult in the chair. It's about being precise. There's still one more cut on this list, and it might be the most surprising one, because it's not really about the haircut at all. It's about a color and cut combination almost nobody talks about, and it might matter more than either the color or the cut on its own. Part 4. The curtain fringe nobody explains correctly. Here's the surprising part most women don't know. The curtain fringe, the soft, parted fringe that frames both sides of the face, tests as the single most youth-restoring style addition for women over 60 in stylist surveys, more than any other single change to an existing haircut. But almost every woman who's tried it and been disappointed made the exact same request, and it's the wrong one for her face and hair type specifically. The mistake is asking for curtain bangs as a flat, generic term without specifying the length relative to the eyebrow, and the amount of layering within the fringe itself. Without that detail, most stylists will default to a shorter, choppier version popular with much younger clients, cut straight across at one length before being parted. On a woman over 60, that shorter, choppier version can look abrupt rather than soft, which is the opposite of the effect a curtain fringe is supposed to create. The fix is asking for the fringe to be cut just below the eyebrow, layered internally rather than blunt, and blended into the rest of the length, rather than being a separate, disconnected section. Use this exact phrase. Cut the curtain fringe just below the brow, layer it internally, and blend it into the sides so it's not a separate piece. The below brow length is critical because it sits at the point where the fringe softens the upper face without cutting across the eye line, which is what creates the abrupt feeling when it's cut too short. Internal layering within the fringe itself, rather than one blunt line, is what allows it to part naturally and fall in soft pieces along the temples instead of sitting like a solid shape. The blending detail matters just as much as the length. A curtain fringe that's cut as a completely separate section, disconnected from the layering in the rest of the hair, tends to look like an addition rather than something that belongs to the whole style. Blending it into the surrounding lengths means the fringe pieces and the face framing pieces move together, which is what creates that soft, integrated look rather than a fringe that reads as its own separate element sitting on top of the rest of the cut. Here's the snapback result, and it's the one I hear about more than almost anything else in this niche. A properly cut curtain fringe softens the entire upper third of the face, specifically the forehead and the outer corners of the eyes, which is often where the earliest visible signs of aging show up first. Women describe people asking if they've changed something with their skincare, when nothing about their skin changed at all. The fringe is doing that work, entirely through where the hair falls and how much forehead it covers without hiding the eyes. I think about a woman who told me she'd avoided fringe of any kind for 15 years because a bad experience with blunt bangs in her 40s left her convinced fringe just wasn't for her anymore. She finally tried the below brow, internally layered version at 68, using that exact phrasing, and said it was the first haircut in over a decade that made her genuinely excited to look in the mirror each morning. 15 years avoiding an entire category of styling, over one bad cut that was never about fringe being wrong for her. It was about that specific cut being wrong. Before, a short, choppy fringe cut bluntly at one length, sitting abruptly across the forehead. After, a soft curtain fringe cut just below the brow, internally layered and blended into the sides, framing the face naturally. If there's one thing I want you to walk away from this video with, it's this. The difference between a haircut that ages you and one that takes years off almost never comes down to length, or even the general category of the cut. It comes down to a handful of specific technical words: point cutting, internal layering, root lift, cheekbone level layers, below brow blending, and whether you say them out loud at the chair or leave it up to a stylist's default habits. You now have all 6. You now know exactly what separates a haircut that quietly ages you from one that takes years off. And it comes down to specific words, not luck, not genetics, not starting over with a totally new style. Point cutting instead of blunt trimming. Internal layering with root lift instead of one flat length. Cheekbone level layers in a lob. A below brow, blended curtain fringe instead of a short choppy one. That's real, usable knowledge you can bring to your very next appointment. Tell me in the comments, which of these 6 were you already doing wrong without realizing it? The blunt bob, the flat pixie, or the disconnected fringe? I read every single comment. Next week I'm covering the exact coloring mistakes that make gray hair look dull instead of luminous, and how to ask for the fix. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.